Hey everybody, what's going on? Welcome to another Columbus Wired Quick Hit pregame preview. I'm Andy Evans, and here we are, live at the Horseshoe for game number 11 of the 2024 season. We're the second-ranked Ohio State Buckeyes, who sit at 9-1 overall and 6-1 in the conference. Welcome in, yes, the undefeated, fifth-ranked Indiana Hoosiers, who are currently 10-0, as well as being 7-0 in the conference. And it doesn't get any bigger than this. Well, it could get bigger than this, but right now, today, it can't be overstated. This is a huge football game for both teams. And I'm sure you're probably looking at the running time right now and going, holy crap, Andy, I hope you start talking about this game fast. So I'm just going to get into it. Let's go into a little bit of let's actually hold off on the history. I usually like to start with the history, then go into what we're going to see out of today's game, but I'm going to start with what we are going to see out of both teams coming into today's football game. Two of the top 17 total offenses in the country and two of the top 3 total defenses are going to be squaring off on the gridiron. Indiana right now, offensively, 15th in the country at 453 yards a game. The Buckeyes just a scotch behind them, sitting at 17th overall in the nation right now at 451 yards a game. Now, these are also the top 2 scoring offenses in the conference. Indiana leads with 44 points a game, which is also second best in the entire nation. Ohio State, 7 points per game less than the Hoosiers at 37 per, which is also good for 12th in the country. These are also the top 2 passing efficiency offenses in the Big Ten. Indiana number 1, Ohio State number 2. And the Hoosiers, led by 6th-year Ohio University transfer quarterback Curtis Rourke, who is spending his 6th and final season in Bloomington after spending the past 5 years down there in southeastern Ohio in Athens. And let's face it, I mean, the dude's been a rock. Aside from missing 1 game this year because of a broken thumbnail, I guess. He twisted it off in MJ Sherman's helmet during the Nebraska game, and then he had to have screws put into his thumb. That's what I was reading online as far as that injury he suffered against Nebraska, which made him sit out against Washington. But otherwise, I mean, the dude has been superb, leading the conference this year. Second in the NCAA in passing efficiency with a 182.7 rating. And of course, we know the Buckeyes, led by 5th-year Kansas State transfer quarterback Will Howard, who is second in the conference behind Rourke in passer rating, which is 3rd best in the nation at a 181.9. So he ain't far behind old Kurt Rourke. Howard, 4th in the conference right now with 2,484 passing yards and leads the Big Ten with 24 passing touchdowns. Curtis, just a couple of spots behind him in passing yards. He's got 2,410 so far on the season, and he's 3rd in the Big Ten with 21 passing touchdowns. Now, Kurt's only thrown 4 picks. Howard has thrown 5. Will that come into play today, especially this being a true November Big Ten football game in the Midwestern part of the United States. I don't know why I said northern, but this is going to be a November football game, folks. Right now, we're looking at temperatures. We're right around the freezing point. It's going to be a little bit warmer today. We've got a nice breeze. Is that going to affect the passing? I don't know. We shall see. Howard, though, as you probably already know, I'm going to throw out this stat, throw it right back at me and say, Andy, stop, I already know. Will Howard, the only quarterback in OSU history coming into today's game to have at least 5 games, throwing over 80% of his passes complete. That's better than the late, great Dwayne Haskins, who had the most impressive, unbelievable single season in OSU history. That's more than Justin Fields. That's more than C.J. Stroud. I mean, we're talking about 3 guys there that were all Heisman finalists, and Will Howard has had more 80% completion passing games than those three. So take that for what you will. Take that for what you will, all right? And, of course, we know who Howard's gone through this year, right? He's got the steady three, Abuka, Tate, and, of course, the freshman sensation, Mr. Jeremiah Smith. So far, both Emeka and JJ, 49 catches apiece on the season. That is tied for the team lead. Met comes in with 612 yards, 8 touchdowns. Jeremiah, we already know what he's done. He's broken all of the great Chris Carter's freshman receiving records, and 865 yards so far in the season. So he only needs 135 to become the first ever freshman to have a 1,000-yard receiving season. And having a 1,000-yard receiving season here at Ohio State, I mean, even having a 1,000-yard receiving season kind of pretty much anywhere, except for maybe if you play at Hawaii, where that's all they do is throw the ball, that's a pretty impressive feat. And, of course, JJ leads the team with 9 receiving touchdowns, not to mention that 1 rushing touchdown that he had earlier in the season, too. And then let's throw in Carnell Tate's name, right? 31 catches, 457 yards, 4 touchdowns, had a 2-touchdown game last weekend in Chicago, which was great to see for the Chicago native having a homecoming and to get 2 touchdown catches against the Wildcats in his hometown, especially to do it in Wrigley Stadium, right? Probably would have been cooler if he had done it in Soldier Field, but I don't think the Bears would have allowed a college football game on their turf, considering they got to play there too at some point. So, Indiana, though, Curtis Rourke, he likes to spread the ball out, all right? High State a little more top-heavy with those 3 guys. Curtis Rourke, though, he likes to look around. He likes to throw down kind of short passes, drag routes over the middle, kind of hit the seams, and he likes to spread it around. 5 different receivers so far in the season with at least 20 or more catches, and 6 receivers with at least 2 touchdown catches or more on the season. Guys like Miles Price, Kashawn Williams, Miles Cross. Of course, though, we know his 2 favorites, Omar Cooper Jr. and Elijah Surratt. Surratt right now, keep your eye on number 13 on the offense. Leads the team with 685 receiving yards, 6 touchdown catches, and then Cooper has kind of been his deep threat. Doesn't necessarily throw to him a whole lot throughout the season. He's only got 22 catches on the year, 24 catches on the year, but he is second on the team with 527 yards and 5 touchdowns, and he's averaging 22 yards a catch. So keep your eye on number 3, Omar Cooper Jr., number 13, Elijah Surratt, especially if they want to take a deep shot down the field. It's probably going to be one of those 2 guys, probably going to be number 3, Omar Cooper, more than anything else. On the ground, offensively, neither team have been slouchy. I mean, the Buckeyes are 3rd in the conference right now at 183 yards a game. Indiana, next spot below them at 176. So it's not like they're a completely one-dimensional offense, both teams. They will get out and run the football. Of course, the Buckeyes got that 2-headed monster in the backfield. Quinshawn Judkins, Travion Henderson. Right now, Quinn, 736 rushing yards, leads the team with 8 touchdowns. Trey's got 680 on the ground with 5 rushing scores. The Hoosiers, though, once again, 4th in the conference at 176 yards a game. They kind of have a 2-headed monster themselves, with being led by 5th-year Wake Forest transfer Justice Ellison, 686 yards and 9 rushing touchdowns. And then the guy behind him is a 7th-year transfer from James Madison. Yes, from the very same school that Coach Kurt Cignetti came from. He brought in Tyson Lawson, who currently has 508 yards as well as 9 rushing touchdowns on the year. But all these 2 offenses that are ranked within the top 17 of the country are going to have to do is score points against 2 of the top 3 total defenses in the nation. Like I just said a second ago, right? OSU, number 2 in the country, only allowing 250 yards a game. Hoosiers, number 3 at 255 yards per game allowed. And on the ground, It doesn't get any better than the Buckeyes when stopping the run, only allowing 72 rushing yards a game. However, the Hoosiers, I just completely screwed up that stat. Flip that. The Hoosiers, it doesn't get any better than them when it comes to stopping the run at 72 yards a game on the ground. Now, that also might be due to their 31 sacks, which leads the Big Ten. However, the Buckeyes are fourth in the country when it comes to stopping the run at 90 yards a game, and that might be also because of their 30 sacks, which is second in the Big Ten to the Hoosiers. And as far as scoring, points come at a premium between these two defenses. OSU is tied for first in the country at only allowing 10.3 points per game. Indiana, seventh at only 13.8 points a game. So points, I think, and I'm going to get into it in a second, are going to come at a premium in today's matchup. Through the air, Ohio State, number one in the conference, sixth in the nation in passing yards allowed at 160 a game. Indiana, a little further down the list. They're sixth in the conference, but that's good for 21st in the nation still. So the Big Ten is playing some passing defense. Hoosiers allowing 183 yards per game. So overall, what do I expect, okay? And I know you're probably saying, okay, Andy, all of those stats have been great, but really let's get to the meat of the bone when it comes to this season, especially for Indiana. Because I know a lot of you out there saying, I haven't heard you throw out the stat I really want to hear yet, that you already probably know what I'm about to say. And that's Indiana's record against the teams that they've played this year. It is 10-0. It is, yes, the first time that the Hoosiers have ever been 10-0 in the history of their 137 years of playing football since 1887. Yeah, you already know that. I didn't want to say it because I know you already know, but I went ahead and said it anyways, just for the sake of saying what I am about to say. Because this year, of the 9 FBS teams that Indiana has played, only one has a winning record, which you already know that as well, and that is Washington, who currently sits at 6-5. And the one FCS team that the Hoosiers played their second game this season, Western Illinois, the Leathernecks. What a great name, by the way. The Leathernecks are 3-8 overall, and their defense currently gives up 506 yards a game, and that's good for 121st out of 123 FCS teams. So the defenses that Indiana has played have not been overwhelmingly powerful. I believe Washington's pass defense is actually a top 10 pass defense, and Indiana had their toughest game through the air of the season. However, like I stated earlier, Curtis Rourke didn't play in that game, so you kind of take maybe a little bit of, tit for tat. Curtis Rourke didn't play. Washington, good passing defense. Indiana's passing stats that game weren't overwhelmingly great. And you're probably also thinking, well, come on, tell me about Curtis Rourke, because he's been playing some of these awful defenses. Look at what happened when he played Michigan at home 2 weeks ago. It could be argued that he pretty much had the worst game, if you will, of the season. A season low 60% of his passes complete for a season low 206 yards. He had 2 touchdowns. He did throw an interception. However, he did throw 2 interceptions against Nebraska, and he completed like 80% of his passes against the Cornhuskers, even with throwing 2 interceptions. So still though, it's almost like, okay, when Curtis Rourke faces a good defense, if you will, I mean, Michigan is obviously a shell of their former selves from what we saw last season, and Curtis Rourke had some issues playing, let's face it, a mediocre, average Michigan team with a maybe slightly above average defense. So when Curtis Rourke faces talent, or should I say when this Indiana offense faces talent, we kind of saw what happened. In fact, 3 points in the second half, and they didn't have like a drive that went like They did not have a touchdown scoring drive, and I think like the longest play they may have had was like 16 yards or something like that. It was something crazy. So that's going to be an issue, obviously, for Curtis in this Indiana offense, and that was at home against Michigan, and they squeaked by 20-15. And in fact, in that Michigan game, Indiana's offensive line gave up 4 sacks, and they had only given up 7 all season long. So they literally gave up twice as many sacks in one game alone than they had given up the entire season going into the Michigan game. And of course, as we know, Ohio State, much maybe to some people's bane of existence, they're not getting to the quarterback enough. They're not sacking the quarterback. Well, the Buckeyes are second in the conference right now with those 30 sacks that I mentioned just a couple of minutes ago. Of course, 1 sack behind Indiana's leading 31. But the big issue is now going to be Ohio State's offensive line and keeping Indiana's defensive line off of their back, okay? Because as we know now, 2 starters are done for the year. Center Seth McLaughlin, or McLaughlin, however you want to say it. I keep hearing McLaughlin. I see a GH, I want to say Laughlin, but anyways. Seth is out for the year, but we know that Carson Hinsman is now taking over. And it's not bad when your backup center was actually your starting center from last year, who started in all 12 regular season games. So Carson's at center. Austin Sierveld now coming in at left guard, and he's got some playing experience this year, right? And then Donovan Jackson is going to stay at left tackle. So are they going to keep guys like Mikhail Kamara and James Carpenter off of Will Howard's back? That's going to be the question. Are they going to be able to open up running lanes to keep Mikhail Kamara and James Carpenter from getting a tackle for a loss? Because right now, keep your eye on number 6, Mikhail Kamara, second in the Big Ten, 17.5 tackles for loss, which includes a league-leading 9.5 sacks. Carpenter, only 25 tackles on the year, but he makes his tackles count. 8 for loss, half of those 4 for sacks. Linebackers, well, actually, defensive backs. Indiana's got some pretty good defensive backs this year, especially number 25, Amari Farrell, and number 5, D'Angelo Pons. Pons, 2 picks on the year, including a 67-yard pick 6 against the Washington Huskies. And Amari Farrell, who leads the team and is tied for second in the Big Ten this year with 4 picks on the year. And then their linebackers, okay? Jalen Walker, number 2, and Aiden Fisher, number 4. Walker, he's great in coverage, 6 pass breakups this year. He's second on the team with 59 tackles. And Aiden Fisher, number 4, keep your eye on him, all right? 98 tackles so far this year, including 3.5 tackles for loss and 3 pass breakups. So, ultimately, my keys to this game: 4th down, red zone, Ohio State's passing offense against Indiana's passing defense, and said issue with Ohio State's line against Indiana's defensive line. So, right now, 4th down, offensively, Buckeyes are 11th in the country at 71%. Indiana's tied for the 5th most trips in the country Indiana's defense, my apologies, tied for the 5th most in the country with 28 attempts. They have allowed teams to get into their red zone 28 times. However, they are second in the country when it comes to allowing teams to score at only 25%. So of those 28 trips allowed, which is the 5th most in the country, they've only allowed teams to score 7 times, which is good for second in the nation. So you may get there, not a good chance that you're going to score. Red zone offense, you've got the top two teams in the Big Ten when it comes to getting into the red zone, in the top six, not just getting in, but converting on their trips. Ohio State not only leads the conference, but they lead the country, converting on 97% of their red zone opportunities. Indiana, however, right behind them in the Big Ten, and they're also sixth in the country, converting on 94% of their trips. So who gets in the red zone and who makes the most of it? That is going to be an important stat to watch. Indiana, too. Oh, my goodness. 56 trips into the red zone this year. Ohio State, 38. That's nearly a 20-trip difference between the two. And the red zone defense, so getting in and scoring is probably going to come at a premium because both two are tops in the Big Ten, top 8 in the country in trips allowed. Indiana has only allowed 22 trips, while the Buckeyes have only allowed 23. So if you get in, you better make the most of it. And the Buckeyes lead both the Big Ten and they're second in the country in the allowing teams to convert in the red zone or to get points in the red zone. 52%. They're only allowing teams to score 52% of the time. In Indiana, however, 86%. So getting there is not a big issue for teams against Indiana at 86%. And I don't know. Once again, points are going to come at a premium, folks. They're really going to come at a premium. Both defenses alike. They run a 4-2-5. That's kind of the standard defense anymore. An extra defensive back. Sometimes, though, we will see both teams come out in a 4-3 in those, kind of run-heavy situations. I think we're going to see a lot of short passes for both offenses. Probably going to try and take some deep shots at times. That's the one thing. I think that Ohio State's receivers are going to be a little bit more of a matchup problem against Indiana's defensive backs and vice versa. And I know you're probably thinking, dude, are you crazy? Look at those back shoulder throws that Curtis Rourke throws to Elijah Surratt and Omar Cooper. I mean, he has been proficient at that this season. Well, Jim Knowles said earlier in the week, how do you stop that? And he said, I don't care if you get a pass interference penalty or not. I'd rather take that than allow a big hit along the sideline. As we know, Davidson Igbinosun, he's probably cheering because he gets a little handsy and he's had more than one pass interference penalty on the season. But Ohio State's offensive line, can they pass protect? Can they create running lanes? We've seen the rush offense, at times look a little anemic. Even though they have been averaging 186 yards a game, I think maybe we've been expecting a little bit more out of this rushing offense this year. Well, we're going to find out today. And we are going to find out today, how real are you, Indiana Hoosiers? And how real are you, Curt Cignetti? And I know a lot of Buckeye fans are probably thinking, dude, I just want to see nothing less than Ohio State pound these Hoosiers and put Curt Cignetti in his place, who, yes, came out during his initial appearance as Indiana's head coach at the Purdue basketball game back in December and said, Google me. All I do is win. And Purdue sucks. But you know what? So do Michigan and Ohio State. And if you Google them, 52-9 in 5 seasons at James Madison, including a 19-4 record the past 2 seasons when James Madison became an official FBS school. And I'm not making that up. Go ahead and Google it. But we're going to find out today. Ultimately, though, like I said, points come at a premium. But I think in the very end, Ohio State's horses just a little too much for Indiana to overcome. And it's going to be a 24-21 win for the Buckeyes. But is that because Ohio State isn't pumped, primed, and ready for this game? Absolutely not. I think it is going to be because, quite frankly, Curt Cignetti, yeah, all he does is win. And we have seen him do it this year. And yes, they may have played crummy teams, and a lot of people might be thinking that, Indiana's overblown. This is by far the biggest game that they're going to be in all season. But I really do think that Cignetti is going to have his guys pumped, primed, and ready to come in here and show Ohio State and the nation that they're for real. And I think this is going to be a fight. But once again, I think Ohio State just a little bit too much. So there you go. That has been the Columbus Wired Quick Hit pregame preview. I'm Andy Evans. It is cold. I am going to go inside and get some hot cocoa or something to warm me up. But until the postgame, folks, let's hope for a good one, and go Bucks.